Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty radical. We're unpacking a fascinating, really uncompromising piece of writing by Xu called Measure Your Levels of Self-Improvement and Self-Cultivation. Now get ready, because we are about to completely re-examine what it actually means to grow spiritually. Seriously, this isn't your typical feel-good spiritual guide that's just going to pat you on the back for trying. Not at all. The text we're looking at today totally dismantles the way most of us think about religion, mysticism, and personal growth. It strips away all those comforting illusions we build around our daily habits, and it forces us to confront a really harsh truth about the difference between just doing something and actually achieving something.
So let me ask you a very blunt, Socratic question right out of the gate. What have you actually achieved on your spiritual journey? Like, really achieved? Take a second to think about your own spiritual milestones. When you measure your growth, what exactly are you looking at? Are you looking at the amount of time you've spent meditating? The towering stack of books you've read? The communities you've joined? Well, the author of our source text argues that almost everyone gets the answer to this question completely wrong. We get so caught up in the actions we're taking that we completely lose sight of the actual, tangible outcome.
Okay, let's dive into this by first defining who this text is actually talking to. Who even counts as a cultivator? Honestly, the net they cast is massive. It covers religious practitioners, seekers of the Tao, and people out there doing humanitarian work. It includes folks who just quietly contemplate the mysteries of nature and try to weave that into their daily lives. It encompasses anyone pursuing paradise, and specifically the members of Lifechanyuan, known as celestial beings. Basically, if you are engaging in any kind of intentional self-improvement, mystical practice, or religious activity, well, this framework applies directly to you. You are a cultivator.
Now think about how people normally measure their cultivation. A lot of folks take huge pride in their devotion to sacred texts, right? Let's say you proudly announce that you've read the Bible from cover to cover, or the Diamond Sutra, the Quran, or the Tao Te Ching. Maybe you can literally recite these scriptures perfectly from memory, and you spend your weekends explaining these profound ideas to big groups of people. You feel incredibly accomplished, and naturally you ask, so, what have I achieved?
Or, maybe your dedication goes way deeper than that. You've practiced intense mystical methods for actual decades. You have this unwavering, rock-solid faith in gods and Buddhas. You hold immense reverence for Jesus. You followed various grand masters, maybe even someone claiming to be a returned Jesus or reincarnated Maitreya Buddha, and you listen to literally every single word they say. Or, hey, maybe you're a modern seeker, skipping sleep and skipping meals just to fiercely debate spiritual concepts online day and night. After all that sweat and tears, you ask, what have I achieved?
Let's push this to the absolute limit. What if your outward displays of devotion are just undeniably monumental? You've written hundreds of articles or thick, profound books trying to answer the major questions of the universe. You've built huge spiritual websites. You meditate, chant, and burn incense every single day without fail. Maybe you've literally built physical temples, constructed massive churches, or erected giant statues of deities. You've flown around the world lecturing to thousands. With all of that undeniable, back-breaking effort, you proudly ask, what have I achieved?
Well, according to Xu text, the answer to every single one of those scenarios is brutally, unapologetically simple. You've achieved nothing. Zero. Nada. Now, hearing that repetition over and over, that reading scriptures, building temples, and following masters amounts to absolutely nothing, that might make you a bit upset. You might feel uncomfortable, or you might think, no way, that's unconvinced and way too harsh. And you know what? The author totally acknowledges that reaction. But they insist that this harshness is absolutely necessary. It's a vital wake-up call.
Because here is the core thesis of this entire philosophy. Cultivation is merely a process. And a process without a final outcome? It's entirely worthless. The text uses this brilliant, vivid analogy. It says an endless process with no result is as futile as lighting a candle in broad daylight. I mean, think about it. Yes, the candle is burning. Yes, you did the work to light it, but it provides absolutely zero illumination because, well, the sun is already out. The process is happening, sure, but the necessary result is completely missing.
And this brilliantly illustrates the point by grounding this whole spiritual shock right into practical reality. Let's look at everyday jobs. If a farmer works tirelessly, plowing the fields and watering the soil all season, but grows absolutely no vegetables at the end, what is his achievement? Nothing. If a builder buys all the lumber and studies the blueprints, but never actually builds a house, what got accomplished? Nothing. If a lawyer writes thousands of pages of defense documents and goes to court 100 times, but never wins a single case for a client, did they accomplish anything? No.
Effort without a product is, objectively speaking, a failure.
Let's lean into that farmer analogy for a second, because the text really hammers it home. Think about it from your perspective as a customer at a farmer's market. You're there because you want to buy vegetables. But if the farmer shows up with an empty stall, can you buy their process of planting? Can you take home and eat the fact that they bought top-tier seeds and spent hours sweating in the sun? Of course not. You want the actual vegetables. Well, according to this text, the universe operates the exact same way. It does not reward the mere process of being spiritual. It demands the spiritual vegetables.
Now, what's really interesting is how this worldly analogy comes crashing right back into the spiritual realm. Take a very specific example from the text. Imagine someone who constantly preaches about forgiveness. They claim to be aspiring to perfection, they talk a big game about inner peace, but then in their actual day-to-day life, they quarrel with literally everyone they meet. This is the tragic disconnect of a process that completely lacks internal change. The outward process of preaching forgiveness means absolutely zero if the internal result, which is actual peace and a lack of conflict, is missing.
So the crucial point is, what exactly are the vegetables of spiritual cultivation? What is the actual goal of all these meditations and readings? The text defines it crystal clear: the celestial kingdom. That is the ultimate aim and the final destination. If we go through all the motions, the chanting, the studying, the temple building, but we ultimately fail to meet the standards to actually enter this kingdom, then our cultivation had absolutely no point. We have to shift our focus entirely away from earthly rituals and lock it on to the final destination.
Okay, so if the celestial kingdom is the destination, what's the ticket to get in? What is the standard? The text is definitive here. Imagine the author was sent by the celestial kingdom to evaluate you. The one and only standard they would look at is the perfection of your soul's non-material structure. That's it. That's the only metric that matters. Notice what is entirely missing from this equation. They don't care about your worldly knowledge, your wisdom, your status, your material wealth, and crucially, they don't care about your process of cultivation. All the religious busy work is just completely stripped away.
Let's move along and see how this builds. Because this perfection isn't just a simple pass or fail grade, it actually builds into a very structured cosmic hierarchy. The text doesn't leave paradise as some vague, fluffy concept. It outlines 3 specific tiers of spiritual progression. First up, you have the 1,000-year world, which represents an initial stage of refinement. Above that is the 10,000-year world, demanding an even deeper level of perfection. And finally, the highest tier, the Elysium world, reserved for the absolute ultimate transformation of the soul. True cultivators use these specific tiers as a self-assessment tool to check at any given time if they are actually making real progress.
So, zooming out, what we are really looking at here is a massive paradigm shift regarding the classic journey versus the destination debate. Now, the author admits that, without a process, there can be no result. You obviously can't reach the destination without taking the journey. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the main takeaway here, the process is only valuable when it actually serves the result. No matter how thrilling or tough or beautiful or long your spiritual journey is, if it doesn't eventually yield the perfection of your soul, it's just a fleeting illusion, completely devoid of value.
So, what does this all mean for us? We'll end on this final provocative thought. The text throws down a major challenge to followers of all traditions. Whether you follow Jesus, study the teachings of Buddha, or the Taoism of Laozi, it asks you to just stop. Stop measuring how many times you've read their books. Stop measuring how many temples you've built in their name. Instead, you need to honestly ask yourself, do your tangible internal results actually align with their true wisdom? Have you actually transformed your soul? Keep that question in mind the next time you evaluate your own personal growth. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep seeking those real results.